growing up in the South, in Atlanta, and in Brunswick when I lived there for a while. In Atlanta, I guess it's a little more common, but all my families, most of them are from the South, small towns. Nobody's ever worked in the music industry,
Mm,
so I was just kind of
mhm.
like the mystery, like child, like
You're like
what does she
like,
really do?
why how'd
Nobody
you go?
really, none of my family really understood for a long
How'd you
time.
go there?
Exactly. Like,
You
why were
you
you at the Grammys?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Indie Unplugged. Of course, my name is what's my name? Let me stop. Vaughan. Of course, y'all know who I am. Y'all watch many episodes. And today I have an amazing guest. As I always do, let me take a moment to introduce the guest, right? I always write these nice, amazing bios. So here we go. Madeline Jackson is a distinguished figure in the Atlanta music scene, currently serving as the Director of Events Programming for Rival Entertainment at Center Stage, The Loft, and Vinyl. Her journey into the music industry began with a passion for entertainment, leading her to pursue a bachelor's degree at Kennesaw State University, where she enrolled in the Joel A. Katz Music and Entertainment Business Program. This program paved the way for internships with esteemed organizations such as the Recording Academy, Play Pro Media, CSAC, and Live Nation. These experiences laid a solid foundation for her career, leading to roles at CSAC, Live Nation, and BMI. In her current position, Madeline manages third-party programming and special events, collaborating with a diverse range of artists and organizations to create memorable experiences. Her dedication and innovative approach have significantly contributed to Atlanta's vibrant live entertainment landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Madeline Jackson.
Wow, that is a warm welcome. Thank you so much. Can I use that
You
bottle
can use it. Yeah, of
after
course.
this? That was so
You
great.
can use it. Yes, you can. So welcome. Finally
Thank
glad to have
you.
you.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for having
Yeah.
me.
I ran into Madeline at one of our Grammy events. I
Yes.
actually was just telling my wife that today, um, how the interaction went. And I
Yeah.
said, I was talking to Terrence, Butterby Rocker's
Yeah.
husband, and you came over and you were like, what's your name? I said, B. Vaughn, We Create Music TV. And you were like, I think I got an email from you. I was like, what?
Yes.
You were like, yeah, I think I got it for an interview. And it was like, and then she said, you never responded. I was like, oh, did I not? She was like, nope. I went to my email and I looked and I was like, oh,
We're
dang,
here
you're
now, though.
right.
We made it. We
We're
made
here.
it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are finally here. So I greatly appreciate it. Great seeing you. I love your hat.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
what does it say?
This is a thrift store find. So I have a
Oh,
lot of fun
look,
and funky
that's
little
right.
pieces. I think it says Chillco.
Chilco.
But
Hey,
that's good. We need a chill day. It's been a
that's right.
crazy week.
It has been, I'm sure. I'm sure your week is very, very busy
It
with a
is.
lot of things that you have going on. So let's kind of take a step back though. Let's talk about it from the beginning. So what
Oh.
sparked your interest or passion for the music industry, right? And then was there a particular moment that you knew that this was the right path that you wanted to be on?
So my passion for music started when I was a kid, really. My parents both love music. I remember my mom would be getting ready in the morning and we'd either have typically VH1, but sometimes MTV, and music videos would
Hmm.
be playing every morning when we get ready for work and school. And my dad, he got me my first record player, my first records, like every birthday, holiday, whatever. I'd always get like the new CDs, everything. So my parents were both very into music, very supportive of my music taste. But I think whenever I
Nice.
was about to graduate high school, I decided that music was where I really wanted to go. I always liked entertainment, always was really into fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that music is just what kept drawing me in. And so I decided to pursue it as soon as I got into college. And I met a couple friends when I first started college that were also into music. And at that time, I lived in a small town. I was born west of Atlanta, grew up in Atlanta most of my life, but for a couple of years lived in South Georgia and Brunswick, Georgia.
Okay.
And that's where my mom still lives. And so I was in a really small town when I graduated high school. I was going to college there briefly before I ended up later going to Kennesaw and met some friends. They did music and we started throwing parties and booking artists together. And I managed some
If you did a
artists.
quarter,
I had
managed,
no idea what I
managed.
was doing then, but I managed some artists. It kind of just went on from there. Then I moved to Atlanta. I actually, fun fact, before I went to Kennesaw, went to school for audio production for a little
Oh.
while. Thought that's what I wanted to do. Realized that is not what I wanted to do. And I wanted, the business was just more my vibe. I love
Mm,
to meet people. I love to meet new artists. I love to hear new music. Music discovery is probably one of my most favorite parts of my job currently. And so then went to Kennesaw, got in the Joel A. Katz Music Entertainment Business Program, and my internships really just set me up for success. That's where I
mm,
started, um, with the Recording Academy, my first experience with them, and it really got me the experience that I needed, got me the connections that I needed to kind of get to where I am
mhm,
now. But from a childhood for sure, my parents both love music and were always supportive of me kind of exploring my
mhm.
career in music, which I know everybody doesn't have. So I was blessed to have that.
That's true. That's true. So what was it about audio production that drew you to it? And you were like, and eventually you found out this ain't it. This ain't what I want to do.
I love the creation of the music,
Mm,
and I think naturally I'm a pretty creative person. Anyone who comes in my home will see that because it's very fun and funky. And on the business side, you don't always really get to be very creative. So, and now I'm learning more now that there are ways to still be creative and be on the business side. But I think I was just so interested in the actual like creation of the music and being involved in that process. But then
mhm.
once I got in there, I realized like, okay, I like hearing a song when it's almost done. I like coming in. I'm not the girl that wants to be in the studio all day. I can come in. Okay, you're almost done. You're halfway done. You want me to hear what you're working on? I can hear it. Then I can
Right.
leave, and then I can come back when it's finished. Um, but I am not. I like the business side. I like artist development. I like discovering new artists, discovering new music. But I decided that me actually being in the studio and being the one that's kind of like hands to the dials, making sure
Mhm.
everything's right, wasn't my total life path. I like running my mouth a little too much, probably, honestly.
Yeah, that was kind of why I didn't pursue mixing.
Yeah.
Audio production, I can do.
Yeah.
Mixing, that's a no.
Oh,
That's a
it's a
no
lot
no.
of work. It's
I was
hard
like, yeah, I
work.
can't do that. But it's good to know that through self discovery, you really
Mm.
figure out kind of where you want to be in this music space. So many people try to do so many things that they're not really fit to do,
Yeah.
and it's good to kind of find a space where you really can shine and operate effectively in that spot. Me is definitely not mixing. That's a
Same.
no.
Definitely not.
Audio production, yes, but outside of that is yeah. But you learn that through
Yeah.
just that period of self discovery,
I
right?
absolutely. I remember I was in a class at when I was going to school for audio production, and we were literally just listening to different decibel sounds and having to
That doesn't sound
decipher what
fun.
decibel it was at. And I was like, you know what? I don't think this is
You know
for
what? I don't
me.
want to do that.
I
I don't
don't
want to do
think this is for me.
right. But some people are amazing at it. Like I got a friend, Amon Jackson, AJ for short, world class engineer.
Ugh, I'm
L-
so
He
impressed by
loves it.
them.
I'm
Yeah.
like, how?
Yeah.
But you figure it out. You figure out what you love, and that's what you follow. That's your passion, right?
And we need people that are good at that.
We
We
need
need
people that are
people that are
good
good
at
at
those
that.
particular
Yes,
jobs, right? So
exactly.
jobs that we probably think in the music industry that we wouldn't do
Yeah,
is really a fit for somebody else, and they will excel at doing that. And
absolutely.
that's a great thing. So you never had any inspirations of being a singer or when you
No, it's funny. People ask me that all the
or a
time.
rapper?
No, listen, I do love hip hop, but no, people ask me that all the time. I don't know if it's just because I kind of I'm a loud mouth, have a big presence, but people always ask me, "You never wanted to be?" But no, I never did. I played guitar for a while. When I was a kid, I played piano, and I always thought like bands were cool, but I never was
Mm,
like. I always wanted to be like a businesswoman, but in like a cool industry. I wanted to interact
there
with
you
the
go.
artist, be around the artist, discover the artist. Big thing. I love
Mm,
like music discovery, as I mentioned, but never me be the artist. No,
mm,
no.
yeah.
What
Well,
about you? Did you ever want to be an artist?
I did.
I love that.
I did. I still
Oh,
do. In some way
oh,
or fashion, I probably still do. But I did. That's what I thought I was going to do. Yeah.
really? That's so cool.
So when I was growing up, I was in choral from
Ah,
a very little
wow.
age all the
Yeah.
way up to high school, and it just never happened. I went into
Yeah.
the military, and you know, got married, and yeah, and it just never happened. Um, and the singing group that I was in when I was in the last singing group I was in, we broke up.
Oh,
And I mean, but we're grown men at this
yeah,
time.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
like late 20s, and it was like, I can't. He's the one guy in the group was like, I can't do this anymore. And the rest of the group was like, well, then we'll break up. And I said, you know what? I'm going to figure out how to make music then.
I
I'm going to
love
stay within
it.
here. I'm just going to figure out how to do it. And so I haven't actually sang anything since almost 20 years.
Well, you
So
should. Have you ever read Rick Rubin's book?
no, but I do want to read it.
You should read it. It talks a lot. I think that's what made me kind of realize that I am still a creative, even though I'm not
Mm,
creating music, because he just talks about how, we're all creatives and we're always creating, whether we're aware of it or
hmm.
not. But also, it's about, you do your passion no matter what. If you have to have jobs or whatever to facilitate it, you do that, but you never stop doing, like what sparks your fire just because
Mm,
it's not making you where you thought it was going to get you. Just because it's not
true.
making you the money you want it to make you yet or whatever. If it's your passion, you never stop doing it.
True.
And, I think when you do it for that reason too, that's when everything falls into place more.
Mm.
It's a really good book. Would definitely
Well, I need
recommend.
a lot of practice.
Listen, say, I understand. You don't ever want me in front of a mic,
I'll need
besides like this,
I need a
running my
lot of
mouth.
practice. For me especially. Um, I mean, so I'm sure in your journey, no journey has a straight line. It's like I do this and I go here and I follow this path and I do this, right? And so there's a lot of times where we have hiccups in the
Mhm.
road. So for you specifically, especially being in school and go from one college to the next and eventually you ended up at Kennesaw. What was that most pivotal challenge that you faced that you knew that you were going to deal with, that kind of challenged you and that you were going to push through it to really be successful and to set you on the trajectory that you are on today?
Oh goodness, there's a couple that come to mind, honestly. The most immediate one I would say would probably be COVID because
Yeah.
during COVID, when COVID started, I was in my 20s.
Mm,
And, I had been in my career for a while and I'd worked at a lot of major companies, but just hadn't got quite to that place I
mm,
wanted to
mhm.
be at yet. And, wanted to be taken serious, had been told by every job I'd ever had pretty much like how great I was and all these things, but was just ready to take it to the next level and kind of become a little more successful in my career. COVID
Right.
happened. And at the time when COVID happened, I was at Live Nation. So my whole entire career was based around concerts and live
Mhm.
events. And so everything halted. And
Mm.
I remember thinking like, okay, do I leave music temporarily? Like what do I do? And I remember I was thinking about leaving music. I was thinking about going a different path. And I went to Kanye's, even though I'm not a Kanye fan these days, but I went to Kanye's listening party. I have to preface that.
See since you prefaced
Listen,
that right, like, because
uh,
he's been acting
yeah, crazy.
a little out of there,
Cannot
just
stand beside what
right.
he's
I'm
in
like,
right
"What's
now.
going on?" But
But at the
anyway.
time, he had his listening party at State Farm.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was a
yeah,
big
yeah.
thing.
Big giant thing, right?
Yep. And I went and I remember sitting there. And of course, this was the first time I'd been around that many people in, since what, March 2020.
Mhm.
And I think this was like summer, maybe into summer, maybe like August, sometime in there. And or actually that was in 2021. So yeah, it had been like over a year since I'd been at any kind of
Mhm.
live show. And he came out and the crowd goes crazy. And, everybody's hearing these unreleased, or they were about to be released, but unreleased
Mhm.
music. And I just remember like I got goosebumps. And in that moment, I was like, okay, no, this is what I have to do no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes to get to where I
Mhm.
want to be. This is what I have to do. It's just like you ever have those moments when you feel like this is your calling?
I do. I do.
And
Yeah.
that's exactly what I felt in that moment. And then I think maybe a month later, I had my job at Rival. And so after that, I wrote down, I'm very big into manifestation. So I came home and I was like, okay, music has to be it. I
Mhm.
have to figure out how I'm going to do it. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do because I was like, I think I need to pivot from what I'm doing now. Like, what should I do? So I wrote down all the characteristics that I wanted in a job. And I knew I wanted to work in live events. I knew I wanted to work more directly with artists, on all levels. And I wrote down to even all the characteristics I wanted in a boss. So
Yeah. People don't do that, but you should. You
yeah,
should do that.
when I love my boss, I have a great boss. We have great rapport. But I sat down and I wrote all that out, and then a friend texted me maybe 2 weeks later saying like, "Hey, know, my friend works at this company. They're hiring. I think you'd be perfect for this position. Send her a text, send her your resume."
Wow.
I had an interview a couple days later. Both interviews before they even met me in person, I was hired and I had the job. And it's my most perfect job I've ever had in the music industry. And I love
Wow.
it so much. And it feels like it was created just for me. So,
See,
um,
that is manifestation in its purest form. And that's,
yeah.
most people should do that. Most people should write down exactly what they want, how they want it, and then let it act upon it and let it be. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. People don't do that. They just, oh, I'll just take any job and I'll just do this, and they wonder why they get in environments that really aren't suitable for them to be in because they
Yeah.
don't like, yeah, like, so as an example, right? Not saying, not to toot my own horn, which
Toot it.
uh,
Come on.
maybe that's how I was, 20 years ago before we got married. But I think women have lists,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
Of like what they're looking for in a man.
Mm-hmm.
And so my wife had a list,
Ah,
right?
love
She had
that.
like this, I don't know how long this, and she said it was a list. That's all I know. Right? It was a list of everything that she was looking for.
Mhm.
I mean, we're married today. We're going on
Yeah.
20, 26 years. And it's
Wow,
like,
congratulations.
I guess I met those,
Yeah.
but she had a list, and
Yeah.
it was, I guess, manifested in that way. I
Yeah.
came walking through the door where we used to work, and what was so funny is that she was the one who met me at the door to lead me to my interview when we
Ah,
first met.
oh
It
my
could have been it could have been
god,
anybody, but
yeah.
it was her. And so, as she she's it's funny. She said I was sitting down for the interview,
Mhm.
and she leaves. She hears God say, "Take note,"
Ah,
and she was like,
I love
"Take
that.
note? Like, what you talking about?" Like, okay, all
Yeah,
right.
what are you trying to tell
Yeah,
me
what you
here?
trying to tell me? She's trying to hook me up with everybody else
Yeah.
and not her. And the only person I was interested in was
It's
her.
her.
Right. So it's like you got to write down what you truly want. And I think a lot of people don't do that, especially
I would
just for
agree.
something simple when it comes to like goals and
Mhm.
strategy and what they
Mhm.
want out of their career, and write them down. Right.
Yeah.
Because if you don't write them down, how are you supposed to execute on them?
When we can
That's
get so stuck to, I'm being like, "Okay, what's the exact title I want in a job?" Well, what do you want the job to feel like?
right.
What kind of characteristics do you want it to have? Do
That's
you
right.
wanna, maybe you don't know the exact title of this position. I didn't even know a job like mine that encompassed kind of multiple aspects of third party programming, of
Hmm.
working directly with artists, of doing, maybe special corporate events like Spotify Wrap Caviar, stuff like that. These are all different things that some, like for example, at Live Nation, there's like different departments that kind of do
Hmm.
multiple things, whereas I get to kind of do all of those.
Oh,
And so I had wrote all that
nice.
down. And so, you don't have to know exactly like what your title is or how you're going to get there.
Hmm.
You just have to decide what you want and then do all the things you can do to, you don't just not work. You don't do, do
Right.
everything you know to do, but you don't
That's
have to
right.
figure it all out if it's for you. It'll just kind of present
It's
itself
got to
to you,
present itself.
you know?
That's right. And it'll present itself in ways that yeah, this is for me.
Yeah.
Like, this is
Yeah.
actually is for me. So,
Absolutely.
you mentioned something, dealing with COVID, and getting back to doing live events and things like that. So, during COVID, a lot of people couldn't get to do
Mhm.
live events. And so a lot of people started putting on virtual events,
Yeah.
right? Virtual concerts and things like that. Um, and still even today,
Hmm.
right? People are still doing that kind of using that medium to communicate, their music through. Do you see that as something that is going to continue to expand? And then how does that impact the live event space?
You
Even
know,
even from an AI perspective, I don't know if AI even plays a part in it. It may, but
I think that's an interesting question. I had that question on a panel recently. I think that yes, there's very much a space for virtual, but I don't see it in replacing events rather than adding an additional layer. So
mm,
like for example, say we had a show and it's sold out and it's unattainable for so many people to come. Like we had Dochi in November and now everybody
wow,
knows how she's so
right,
amazing. So we had Dochi in November. Imagine we would have had it, sold out so fast. And then of course just her virality of this was even pre-Grammys, but even at that
oh
time,
wow,
she was so huge. And she was getting traction so fast that if it would have been live streamed, that would have been a way for everybody who couldn't get a ticket to see it. And a way, like I feel like she has fans of all ages. Maybe kids whose parents wouldn't let them go could see it.
hmm,
I think it's a way to just give people more touch points with the artist rather than replace live, because I don't think we'll ever get to a place where we don't desire human connection.
Hmm.
And I think one way COVID taught us that is being in the live events industry. I want to say like post COVID, it was expected to increase by like 40%. We did
Wow.
over 400 shows last year in our
Wow.
3 venues. And of course,
Wait.
Rival does festivals, events with different major corporations. We do a lot of stuff
Hmm.
outside of the venue too. So I think if anything, it showed us how much as a whole we desire human connection, and that,
Mm.
that feeling of all being in a room and all singing along to the same song. And, everybody's kind of in this unison special moment where we can all connect over something that you can't hold. It's just, it's
Right.
like, it's a really special thing. So I think that I think there's absolutely a place for streaming. I love having streaming in venues.
Hmm.
A shout out Ben Holst Volumes.
Hmm.
And that's something that we definitely want to have in our venue as well. But I think that it's just a way to add to the experience. And some of these artists that have, the fans want to be able to meet them. They want to be able to greet them. They want to be able to get the merch. They want to be able to get their first pre-sale. It's like another way that they can connect with these
Yeah.
fans. I feel like back in the day, people would tour around with these bands and go to all these bands, and maybe
Oh
that's
yeah,
not
the
as
groupies.
possible today.
Oh yeah, the
But you
groupies.
could, yeah, exactly.
They sure
But maybe
would.
you could watch all the live streams and attend the one in your city.
That's
There's
true.
way it's more ways for you to be connected to that artist without you being like right there in the room with them.
Yeah.
So I think it very much has its purpose and value.
Yeah, it's different. I guess it's a different feeling and experience because so Wu Tang is coming, right?
Mhm.
I'm a huge Wu Tang fan. Wu Tang is coming in June, and I've seen tons of Wu Tang concerts online, and
Yeah.
it ain't the same,
No.
right? It is
Exactly.
not the same.
Exactly.
Like I can hear "Protect Your Neck" online, but to see it in person,
Like I got it.
it's
Yeah.
gonna be a different feeling, right? I can't
Yeah.
wait until this concert in June. It's gonna be a different feeling. I get to scream. I mean, imagine me sitting in my room screaming. "Yeah!" My wife would come in and be like, "What are you
Yeah.
here doing? What's going on?"
Oh.
I mean, she'll probably watch the concert with me online, but no, I mean, we got to go to the
Yeah.
actual building, But I think it is an avenue for other artists and creatives to take if to help expand. I don't
Mhm.
think it'll replace, which is why I wanted to ask that question. I don't think it'll replace, but as I think you said, it just complements the
Mhm.
ability to reach more people globally than you probably could, in any other way.
Absolutely.
So you could add
Absolutely.
on to it, and you find a lot of artists who like live stream their concerts,
Mhm.
and you pay your online virtual fee, even events.
Yeah.
If I can't make it out to the ASCAP, event or to this event, they could live stream it, and then I could watch those videos and
Yeah.
or and participate that way. So I think that's um, a good medium to use.
Well, and with how much, arena, not our concerts, we have very reasonably priced tickets. But arena shows, as everybody knows, it's been such a topic of conversation about how
Right.
expensive they are. It's also a way just to make the shows more accessible. Again, you're not getting that human connection and that energy that comes from being in a room with
Hmm.
everybody so excited about the same show. But, if you can't go at all, you can still experience it. If, a
Hmm.
live stream might be a couple dollars,
That's
whereas
right.
opposed to a good concert ticket in an arena could be over $1,000 sometimes if you want to be super close.
Right. You want to be super close with that Wu Tang?
Oh, I can only
Wu Tang
imagine.
con. Oh my
I
god! I
can
saw the
only
price and I was like,
imagine.
you know what?
Do I have
I
to
don't,
be on the
I
floor?
don't love y'all that much though.
Exactly,
That's
exactly.
exactly. I was like, I don't love y'all that much.
There you
Like I
go.
love Wu Tang, but not that much though. Like,
Yeah,
are you for real?
I
No.
know. I know. That's
Like
crazy.
like I got tickets to go see Usher, which was cool.
Oh, I bet that was a good show.
Yeah, my
I'm sad
job
I
gave.
missed it.
Yeah, once again, I ain't telling y'all where I work, but my job gave me tickets to go see Usher.
I
I'm
love
hoping they
it.
give me tickets to go see Wu Tang because that's the only way I'm.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
and
We're
we're gonna
manifesting it right now.
manifesting it
There we
right
go.
now.
Wu-Tang
Wu
tickets on the
Tang,
way.
Wu Tang Clan. Exactly. So let's go back. So of course you went to Joel A. Katz
Mhm.
School of Music, right? Um, what were some of the key lessons that you learned that helped you uh, really pursue the career you're in today? What were some of those key lessons that helped shape your perspective within the music industry so that you could be effective and successful?
Mm. So, I learned so much in the Joel A. Katz Music Entertainment Business Program because I feel like the music industry is kind of a mystery to a lot of people. It's like, okay, we know people get songs on the radio, we know this, we know that, but we don't know anything about PROs, just like
Mm-hmm.
average people.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know anything about publishing deals. You don't know anything about making sure that your music's registered at the PRO to collect your royalties. Like most people don't even really understand how artists get paid from all these different revenue streams or like
Mhm.
what the major earners are. Like an average person may not know that touring and merch is one of the biggest ways artists earn money, you know? So I think that it just taught me everything because I was just a kid trying to figure it out and I didn't know any of this at
Mm.
all. And so and then too, I think a really large benefit of it, in addition to learning all that, and shout out Keith and Danny because they run the program. They're amazing. They're still there. We actually get interns from their class
Oh,
at
okay.
Rival. Um, but they just taught me everything I had to know about music, and then going in to be able to work at these organizations and getting real life experience, at the Recording
Mhm.
Academy, at Live Nation, at CSAC, that I think the biggest benefit was having internships and also them having, they make you have one when they call it an externship, but they make you have one every single semester that you're in like the main part of the
Oh,
program. So most places don't have you have 4 internships.
yeah.
But I had 4 and I went on to either work for or work with 3 of them.
Mm.
And so that really just set me up for success, like went on to work at both CSAC and Live Nation, and I'm a professional member of the Recording Academy.
Me too. Shout out to the
Yeah.
professionals.
Yes, yes,
We're gonna
yes.
move to voting one day. I can't.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
as you know, I just ran for a board
I
seat, so
do
hopefully
know.
you'll see
I
me
do
on the
know.
Atlanta chapter
I
board
do know.
soon.
I I
Um,
do know.
But, so yeah, it's just it taught me I mean, even down to learning about the Grammys, most
Mhm.
people don't understand how the Grammys work. They
They
don't
don't.
know
They just
the
complain
record
about it.
Yeah, exactly, but they won't be members.
They complain about it, but they won't be members to really figure out how it
Exactly.
actually works. So,
Yeah, when
but
they don't know that you have to vote on a category, you have to be an experienced artist in that category,
that's right.
It's not just like random people vote, like not even professionals like me, you know?
I can't vote. I'm
Yeah.
like, I wish I could vote, but I can't.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So I feel like, the program taught me so much, but a big thing that I learned early on that I did not learn in school was work ethic from my
mm,
mother. My mom is a very hard worker.
mhm.
And I think she always instilled that in me. Like her things were always, you got to work hard and take pride in your appearance. You got to show up looking nice. So our versions of looking nice are sometimes different, but
Sometimes different, but
but I think that those were really good lessons for
mm,
me. And so, any task that came my way, I tried to work as hard as possible, and work ethic, it has to be instilled, I think, at a young age. It can't even just be instilled from a teacher because it's something you'll carry with you through
mhm.
your life. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned from anybody was my
Yeah.
work ethic.
And work ethic will get you, it will take you far.
It
I don't
will.
think people realize that. Work ethic will take you far because if a person sees that you're diligent and they see that you are disciplined in something small,
Mhm.
then that grows and that
Yeah.
grows and that grows. And you start to take on more and more and more. Because if I can't trust you with this, how can
Yeah.
I trust you with this?
Exactly.
Right. And if you don't have the work ethic and discipline to do this, I mean, to do this small thing, I can't trust you to do
No,
something
exactly.
big and amazing. And then
Exactly.
other people can see it.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, she has a great work ethic. I think that's who we need to get up here in our team.
Mhm.
And they see that. And if people don't see that and you don't have that, I agree. It's something that you have to learn continuously through experience and through reinforcement
Yeah.
that your work ethic sets in.
Well, and I think too, like even when you're hiring people, you can teach skill. You
Hmm.
can't teach work. I mean, maybe you can teach work ethic a little bit if it's somebody who's already showing effort and you can point them in the right direction, but ultimately you can't teach that. You know, you can hire somebody with an amazing personality and great work ethic that's never done the job, but that you can train to do the job
Yeah. As
and they're
long as
going
they're
to be
teachable.
amazing. Or you can hire somebody that maybe already knows how to do the job, but doesn't have the right attitude, doesn't have the right work ethic. And even though, the one that may not know, it may take them a little longer to get it, but once they're
Hmm.
there, they're killing it.
Hmm.
Whereas somebody who already has the skill, they can hit the ground running. But if they're not, if they don't align really with the work ethic required, the personality, all of that, they may not last as
Yeah.
long.
Y'all know she's speaking my language, right? Y'all know this. I know y'all know this. Y'all know my background is in organizational development and leadership. Y'all know this from watching the program, right? Y'all know I've trained CEOs of Fortune 150 companies all over the world, all over the United States. Y'all know this. That's my thing, right? So That's what we teach in leadership, situational leadership, right? We teach all about followership and having directive behavior and follow behavior and all those different things that dictates certain certain things, skill versus will, and blah blah blah. All right, all that stuff. That's right up my alley. But anyway, but no, you're absolutely right. Is you can have the skill as long as they're teachable, as long as you're
Mhm.
teachable, as long as you're coachable, and you're willing to learn. We can teach you how to do the job
Yeah.
itself. What we can't teach you is work ethic.
Mhm.
What we can't teach you is to have discipline. We can show you a way,
Mhm.
right? Like I always ask when I'm teaching like leadership class, I always ask leaders a question. Can you motivate other people?
That's a good
Yeah,
one.
I can do it. I can motivate another person. I can absolutely. How many of you think you can motivate somebody else? I can do it. Tell me how. And they're like, "Well, I can do this and I can do that." And I said, "But you're actually not motivating that person.
Mhm.
What you're doing is you're creating an environment that helps to motivate that person. So you're sharing personal stories of you're creating but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it." And they
Absolutely.
after the class, they're like, "You know what, Brian, you are absolutely right. I really can't motivate a person. I create an environment that helps a person be motivated, but I can't really do it." They hate when
Yeah.
I teach class. I get on my little high horse about
Awesome. I
crazy
love it.
stuff.
I love it.
But you mentioned your mom, right?
Yes.
Your mom has been one of your biggest supporters
Yes.
that throughout your journey. So can you talk? And I think it's great because not a lot of people have that. Not a
Yeah.
lot of people have parental support. A lot of time it's like you can't do that because you got to go be a doctor, or you got to do this, get a job,
Mhm.
blah blah blah, right? So let's talk about what that support meant to you. How did your mom support you through your career itself? And just what were the biggest things that your mom did to support you in your journey?
Oh my gosh, she always told me I could do whatever I wanted to do. It was always okay for me to just explore anything that interests me and do it full speed ahead even when it
Mm.
even when I didn't have a salary job and I was working multiple jobs, even when I didn't have benefits and I was working in the music industry trying to figure it out. She was still, she knew it was going to pay off. She
Mm.
knew I had good work ethic. My mom too, growing up, I was born in the 90s, and growing up at that time, my mom has been she's been in banking most of my life. And when I was a kid, she was the
Mm.
president and CEO of a bank, which was very rare, especially for a woman in Georgia.
Yeah.
And she was on all the boards, involved in all the organizations, was, a socialite of our city. And I think it showed me that a woman could do that.
Mm.
And that she could be a leader, she could lead people, she could be on all the boards and involved in all the organizations and still be a great mom. And so it showed me that that was possible. I think so many people, well, they don't have parents that support them, or they
Right.
didn't have somebody that really showed them it was possible. I think even if you don't have either, y'all, you can do whatever you want. But I think that it helps to know that you can do it and that you
Right.
can be a woman in a male dominated industry and still become the CEO, still make it happen, still make waves, and still be a good mom while you're
Mm.
doing all that. But, for me, just having that support system and knowing that I could do it, and even when I hadn't made it yet, when I'm not done, but I hadn't made it, even to
That's
a
right.
point where I was able to fully pay my bills, she was like, "You still, do everything it takes. Do everything it takes. Don't
Mm.
stop. Don't give up. Keep going. Keep showing up every day. You're paying it off. It's gonna pay off. It's already paying off. You're already working at big companies, but it's gonna pay off.
Mhm.
Like, don't stop." And so that unwavering support definitely made me not give up.
Yeah.
And I appreciate her for that. So, and I'm just so grateful that I had parents that supported me and I had a mom that really like believed in me, because I think, especially when it's hard, you don't have somebody supporting you. It really takes everything in you to be able to keep it going.
Mhm.
And I was blessed I believed in myself, but I'm sure a lot of that was founded on, what I learned from her and the belief she had in me for
Right.
sure.
Yeah, and you had an example, right, that was living before you of a person who is living that life,
Mhm.
right? And having the level of influence that she had and, being in those circles and spaces showed you that you can do literally almost
Mhm.
anything that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people have that. Not a lot of people have somebody in that corner. There's a difference between your friend supporting you. You
Mhm.
got it, Madeline, you got it. You could do it.
Yeah.
And your parent
Yeah.
supporting you. Because a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it myself, right? I got kids. I'm guilty of it myself. We want the best for our kids, but it's like, yeah, I want the best for you. I want you to pursue all the things that you want to do, but I also want you to be, a realist and understand that you got to still support yourself, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
That is a real thing, and it's like,
Yeah.
how do you continuously do that and not be a parent that's always about? And I fell victim to that, transparency, right? I fell
Yeah.
victim to that. Was like, you got to go out and you got to get a job. You got to go out and get a job. I don't care what you're doing over here because this ain't really doing nothing. But what you got to do is go out and get a job.
Yeah.
And I had to sit back and really go. But they are doing what they're supposed to do.
Mhm.
They are doing the things that they have their mind set on. Yeah, they may not be making money from it at this particular moment,
Mhm.
but are they on the right path to the career that they want for themselves? And how
Mhm.
can I help support them through that?
Yeah.
Right? I had to have that realization because for me it was always, and I grew up that way.
Mhm.
Right? I grew up with the hard work ethic. I had a job when I was 15. I had a job
Mhm.
paper route when I was little,
Yeah.
right? So I grew up with that. Like, you got to
Yeah.
get out there and you got to, do your own and you got to get a job. But I realized that today's generation doesn't really have it the same way we used to have it
Yeah.
back in my old days, right? In the old times. And so I had to realize that, like, there's trajectories that are going to be different than what I've experienced than what my children
Yeah.
experience. And it's like, so as an example, not to make this about me, I have a son who's a professional gamer. Like
Okay.
an actual, I will travel across the country
Oh, I love
and
that.
compete and whoop up on you,
Yeah.
professional gamer, right?
Wow.
And so I had to realize, like, man, he out here doing his thing.
It's a job.
It's a job. He's doing
Yeah.
his job.
Yeah.
Like, now, granted, they may not make as much money as I do, and that's not the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
But it's like, are you doing your job?
Yeah.
And are you really working at your
Mm.
job? And if I see that you're doing that, I have nothing to say. Have nothing to say because you're
Yep.
doing what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
And that's why I think it's different than having like a peer group say, "Oh, hey, you got it," and your parent
Yeah.
saying, "You got this. I
Well, and
believe
then
in
when
you."
it does pay off, my dad was very much like you were saying you were when I first. He was like, he was supportive, but he was just like, okay, you've been
That's the
doing this
man.
for a
Yeah,
while.
that's the man.
You don't have a real
Right.
like salary yet. You don't have benefits. Like maybe you just need to get
How you gonna take care of yourself?
yeah, yeah,
Right.
exactly. And then now he's like, okay, you were right. It paid off. He wasn't totally doubting me, but he was just like, all right, you've been doing this for a while now. When's it gonna pay off? And I was like, okay. It eventually does. It eventually does. But
Mhm.
growing up in the South, in Atlanta, and in Brunswick when I lived there for a while. In Atlanta, I guess it's a little more common, but all my families, most of them are from the South, small towns. Nobody's ever worked in the music industry.
Mm.
So I was just kind of
Mhm.
like the mystery, like child, like
You're like
what does she
like,
really do?
like, why how'd you go?
None of my family really understood for a long
How'd you
time.
go there?
Exactly.
Just
Like, why were you at the Grammys? What?
what's the grant? What's that? Yeah,
What
trust me.
exactly?
Trust me. I absolutely get it. But I still think it's a great thing, even to have a parent who may not be 100% supportive in
Hmm.
the beginning, to come to the realization, and it only happens because of the work that the person puts
Yeah.
in, and it's like, oh, you proved me wrong.
Yeah.
I would say, prove me wrong. Then, think you can do it? Go ahead,
Exactly.
prove me wrong. Yeah, make me. Hey,
And that's a good feeling too
that's a
when you
great.
do prove 'em
That's a
wrong.
great feeling. Like,
See, I
I
told you.
showed you, didn't I? Yeah, I
Exactly.
showed you. That's right. So it's always a great feeling. And so even from a peer perspective, you had others in your life, such as Aaron Baxter,
Yes.
and
Shout
my
out Aaron.
shout out Aaron and my brother, right, from another mother, Greg Smith, right,
Yes. Shout out
my
Greg
guy.
too.
I have
Those are
my
my
own
people.
Greg story. I always tell people the Greg story. But yeah, so even before I share that,
I
how did
can't
they?
wait to hear the Greg story.
Wow. That's a. I guess I'll tell you and ask you the question, right? Um, so was it before I moved to? It's before I moved to Atlanta. I
Okay.
was still traveling from St. Louis to Atlanta, right? Kind of
Mhm.
like a Metro Boomin thing, right? St. Louis to
Okay,
Atlanta,
Metro.
right? And so I'm traveling back and forth. My job was what was bringing me down here. Every time I had a training session down here, I
Mm,
would always go to different events,
yeah.
and I always planned the training sessions around like A3C
Oh
or
wow.
I Standard, rest in peace Hatch. And
Mm.
so I will always do it around an event.
Yeah.
And they were having this event, and there were 3 events. Greg hear this story, he can be like, "Yep." They were having 3 events that week,
Yeah.
and so the first event was at this like meet and greet networking thing. And I have a friend named Jeff Blackwell. He was like, "Yeah, come to this event. We're gonna hang out." He was like, "That guy's the guy you gotta want to know." And I was like, "Who are you talking about? The guy over there? Okay, great." And I went. I'm not gonna say the whole thing, Greg, but anyway. So, so, so we go over there, and I was like, "Hey, hi, my name is Brian.
Mhm.
Blah blah blah. My friend told me to come introduce myself. Blah blah blah." He said, "You do?" He was like, "No, I don't do any music." He gave another job description. I'll
Uh,
tell you off camera, but he gave another job description
uh-huh.
that he did, right? And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I went back and told Jeff, and I
Yeah.
was like, "He said he was a," and Jeff was like, "No, he's not. This
Sounds
is,"
like something Greg
he's
would
like,
do.
"This is what he does." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then so I went back to Greg, and I was like, "Blah blah blah." We had a conversation, and then I said, "I'll see you tomorrow."
Mm.
He was like, "Yeah, right. Who is this guy? I'll see you tomorrow." And so we went to a an ice standard. Ice standard was having a like a beat battle, and Greg was there. And I walked up to him, and I was like, "Hey, Greg." He was like, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?" "I'm good." We had a conversation again, and then after that conversation, after that night was over, I was like, "All right, good to seeing you. I'll see you tomorrow." He was like, "What?" And so, it's
I love
so I
so.
remember parking in this park. It was a Grammy event
Yeah.
because I started with the Grammy chapter in St. Louis, which was part of the Memphis chapter,
Oh, cool.
and then migrated down here. And there was a Grammy event, and I parked my car. I got out, went to the little pay station. Who was behind me?
Oh my god.
I turned around, was like, "Hey, what's up, Greg?" He was like, "Okay, this is the third night.
What?
You said I was going to see you every single night, and I did. Okay, it must be something." And
Yeah.
we've been friends ever since.
Oh my
So,
god, I
but
love
anyway,
that.
that's my Greg story. But the question I wanted to ask you was about Aaron and Greg, and being someone who helped and guided you in your
Mhm.
career. Talk a little bit about what that mentorship meant to you, and what were some of the biggest lessons you learned from Aaron and from Greg.
Oh my gosh, it meant so much to me. They're both people that I still call frequently whenever I need their advice on something in the industry or, like, what should I do in this scenario? Whatever. I talk to them. I think I've talked to them both this week, actually.
Mm,
I talk to them both
mhm.
frequently. Um, but they both taught me so much. Aaron gave me my very first internship ever with the Recording Academy. And I worked for
Nice.
her and Michelle. Shout out both of them. But Erin and I became really close. I ended up being her daughter's. I would babysit her daughter.
Oh,
And so we became close even on that level while I was in college. And now her daughter's in college. So that's crazy to think about.
right.
Yeah, 'cause she was like, what, 7 then or something? While ago. Um, but they've both just, given me advice at so many different points in my career and helped guide me in so many different ways. They're both. It's funny because you know them both, so they're both very different people with very different advice, but have navigated this industry for so
Mhm.
long and have seen so many of the different ins and outs in this industry, and just always just give me about how do I respond to this situation I'm in? Maybe it's a challenging situation, or how do I celebrate this situation, or who should I go to in this scenario? Who should I
Mm,
connect me with? Not only did they give me like, personal advice, but like have helped connect the dots on me. They've both helped me get multiple jobs in the
mm.
industry. Remember I was up for this one position in one of the companies you mentioned, and there's like 1,200 applicants, and
Wow.
they both made calls for me, and I got the job out of 1,200 applicants.
Wow, see?
And
Connections.
and even in there's another job I've worked at that I had some maybe a lot of challenges at, and they were both people that I ran to immediately. Like, how do I handle this? What should I do?
Mhm.
Am I crazy? Am I not doing something correct, or is this what is this? And they both, of course, gave me great advice. So they're people that I constantly turn to, and I think that having mentors in this industry is so important. It really helps. It
Yeah.
really helps a lot,
Yeah.
and having people who've been in the industry longer than you and can give you different advice and maybe different perspectives. They've gone through
Yeah.
things you haven't gone through, and maybe they have a different perspective. Maybe they know the person you have the scenario with differently than you do,
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so I think it's been so beneficial having them, as great mentors in my life, and even helping me. I'm now a mentor in the Grammy U program. So I have a mentee,
Mhm.
and love with them, and I also have a mentorship. Henny and Kennard, both they've
Mhm.
given me great advice over the years as well. So, but Aaron and Greg have been my study for a long time,
Mm.
and Aaron gave me my first internship in the industry. Greg gave me my very first job in the industry.
Wow.
And also one of my internships too. I met Greg at a conference too, and have a similar story. So that's really funny to hear your story, because I have a similar story of how we met as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I love to hear that one too because it's always just interesting when you meet, and I'll say meet Greg
yeah.
for the very first time. It's like, wow. I, I have to tell you off camera what he told me, um, but then once you get to know someone like him
Hmm.
and what he's able to, just him as an individual and as a person, like as an example, I got a was it a call? I got a I got a call from Greg. And Greg said, "I need you to be at this address at this time."
Hmm.
All right.
Okay, I'll be
I'm like,
there.
"Okay, I'll be there."
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was.
Yeah. Sounds like something Greg would do.
I didn't know. I had no clue what this was.
Yeah.
But because I knew Greg,
Yeah.
it didn't matter what it was going to be.
Yeah.
I showed up. And what it ended up being was being a part of the steering committee for AIMP
Ah, so
Atlanta.
cool. Love
And
that.
so I was like, "Oh, you want me to be on the steering committee to help formulate the Atlanta chapter for AIMP. Great.
Love it.
But it doesn't, Greg can call me right now. Well, after this interview. And
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, what you need? I
Yeah.
need you to be here and to do this. Okay, great.
Same.
I am there.
Same. If Greg ever tells me to be somewhere or meet somebody, I'll do it.
I'm there.
I will do it. Him or Aaron, both of them. Anybody y'all need me to meet, anything place you need me to go, anything you need me to do,
That's right.
I will be there with bells on.
That's I'm there. I'm there. Okay, so let's talk about a typical day for you. First of all, let's kind of go back. Because for those who may not know what you do, what Rival Entertainment is, so just kind of give us the overview of what you do and who the organization is.
Absolutely, I would love to. So I'm the director of events programming. So I always tell people I essentially book concerts. I book I book concerts. I book special events. I book third party programming. So I book all kinds of different events and center stage, Loft, and Vinyl. Some of my favorite shows I've got to work on is we did Andre 3000 last
Oh,
year. That
good
was
old
really
three steps.
amazing. I
And he
did.
didn't rap, but
No, no, he
he
did not
fluted it
rap,
up.
but everybody did chant ATLO, because that's that so Atlanta. Um, I did the JID MTV Unplugged
Okay.
and the Loft. I did the Spotify Rap Caviar event last year. I've done, I mean, so many different artists, Currency, D Savage, literally India Irie. Have had the pleasure of booking so many different amazing shows in our spaces over the year. I did Shaq's the General Insurance commercial.
I
uh,
remember that commercial still. Yes.
so I do a
Yes.
little bit of everything. I would say our bread and butter is I do a ton of ticketed concerts with a bunch of artists. We do a little bit of everything. I'm definitely a hip hop girl. I love hip hop. And so that's what I enjoy, booking hip hop and R&B the most. But
Mhm.
we do indie alternative. We do a little bit of rock. We do a prog rock metal festival every year called Prog Power. We do some regular metal, some other stuff too.
Mhm.
But I would say like our bread and butter and my favorite is probably the hip hop and R&B. And the really cool special events like the title
Mm.
rising, or the Spotify Rap Caviar, things like that are always really fun to work on. They always come in and transform our
Mm.
space, and it's
Mm.
really really cool.
So
Um,
no, I was gonna
uh,
ask. So what makes the hip hop and R&B ones more, I don't want to say more, but the ones that you kind of gravitate towards the most versus some of the others?
I don't know. I've just always loved hip hop and R&B. I don't know if it's maybe because I grew up in the South in Atlanta most of my life, or The first artists I ever managed were rappers.
Oh,
The first shows I ever booked were rap. Um, I love everything though. Don't get me wrong. I love a little bit
oh,
of
I love
everything.
everything.
But being in Atlanta, we do a lot of that. We do a lot of that. And so I
Mhm.
think too, I get to see a lot of artists grow. Like we have 3 unique spaces, which is really, really cool. So we have a 300 cap space, which is vinyl. We have a 650 cap space, which is Loft. And then we have a 1,050 cap space, which is Center Stage. And everybody knows the Center Stage name. Everybody knows they're coming to Center Stage, but don't always know the identity of the other two venues as much
Mhm.
because we are all in the same building. But because of that, I've seen artists grow their career between all 3 spaces. And a lot of times, like, I use this example,
Mm.
we had Kenny Mason, who the first time I ever saw Kenny Mason perform was at a Lotus Rosary show. Shout out Anwar. He's amazing. Runs in as one of the co-founders of Lotus Rosary. But I remember the first time I saw him, it was like, on the west side. And I don't know if you're familiar with I think it's called the Met now, but it used to be the
Yeah,
Metropolitan
yeah, yeah, yep,
Lofts.
yep.
Right over there was like this kind of warehouse space. And it was like, I come in and it's like this cool artistic space. But that's the first time I saw Kenny Mason perform. Since I've been at Center Stage, we had Kenny Mason in vinyl, sold it out. Had Kenny Mason in Loft after that, sold it out. And then he came back and almost sold out Center Stage. So it's so cool to be in this
Mhm.
space, and we see it with some other artists too, but being in Atlanta and being in hip hop, I get to see it a lot more personal. There's been a lot of artists I've been able to see really grow their
Right.
careers, like Kenny Mason. And so it's just so cool being involved in this community and
Mhm.
culture and getting to see these artists, grow in our spaces. It's really cool. And even before I worked there. Um, but back to the question, more about Rival and what we do. So Rival Entertainment has been around for 20 years. It is a promoter. Um, we have venues, produce like festivals. So, in addition to our 3 spaces and, of course, running all the programming in our 3 spaces, Rival Entertainment also produced One Music Fest.
Okay.
They were the owners, producers, bookers, everything of Candler Park Music Festival, Highball Music Festival, Big Night Out. So Big Night Out did, I believe, Outcast last
Mhm.
show ever. Also, we did Cake last year. There may be some other things coming this year. Stay tuned.
Uh-oh.
We produce a lot of events for Delta Airlines.
Mhm.
Um, and so we do a ton of stuff inside of the building, but also outside of the building. We're really, Rival Entertainment is a powerhouse in the Atlanta community. And anybody who's really in the industry, I feel like has heard about Rival at some
Mhm.
point. Josh and Lucy are the powerhouses behind Rival and my bosses. And it's such a pleasure to work with them. And they really care about independent. And they really care about live. And I'm really blessed to be at a place where like, if I have a good idea and the dollars can make sense, I can do it. I feel like there's
Mhm.
not many places where you can do
Mhm.
kind of, whatever. If you have an amazing idea and you can make it make sense, you can make it happen.
Mm.
And I haven't worked at many places actually that had that
Right.
experience.
Right.
And so it's really a privilege to be somewhere where I can kind of, make anything happen.
Mm.
But yeah, we put on amazing events and shows, and that's what we do. And Rivals done a lot of cool ones. Fun fact: Prince's last show at the Fox Theater, that was Rival. That was before I worked at Rival, but that was
But still,
Rival.
it's Prince
So
still.
so over the year, Wildin' Out, I think started their filmings at Rival.
I think so.
Yep. Or
Yeah.
at Center Stage with Rival. Years ago, there's been so many different historical events that have happened in that venue. The Captain and the Kid by Elton John was filmed at Center Stage.
Oh,
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Under the time Rival was there. So there's been Rival has some really cool history, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be able to work
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh,
What does a typical day look like for you?
oh my
Because I know
gosh.
you're like incredibly busy.
Every day
So
is
every
different.
day.
I am not a remote worker. I do go into the office at least 5 days a week, sometimes 7.
Wow.
But every day could look different. Like, for example, yesterday, I go into the office in the morning. I usually go to Pilates most days when I can. I did not make it yesterday. But I come in, I work, I have a lunch meeting out of the office. I come back, not every day, but yesterday. I come back, I work for a while. My intern is there a couple days a week, and then I go to I'm always at different networking events. I was at, the Live Nation 404 mixer yesterday. Then last night I went to the St. John concert at Buckhead Theater.
Mm,
I'm constantly, I am very much a in the office person. I am
right.
at the office every day at some point of the day, but I'm always out. I mean, networking is
Mhm.
really important to me. I'm always out networking, always out, either meeting with artists, meeting with maybe managers of artists, maybe
Mhm.
agents. Maybe I'm meeting with a promoter who's going to bring a show to me. Maybe I'm meeting with a special events company. I'll do walkthroughs of our spaces. And, maybe I'm meeting with, Google or Spotify or somebody like
Mhm.
that. Every day can kind of look different. I'm typically in the venue at least at some point every day, showing people around. I don't go to all my shows, but I do go to a large portion of them. And I even go to Brandon. He's our talent buyer at Rival Entertainment. He'll do shows I like. I'll go to his too. Last week, I think I was at the venue for a show 4 nights of the week.
Wow.
And then had some other stuff going on. That's not every week. We had some really good shows last week.
Mm.
That's not every week, but yeah, and I go to other venues too. Like I said, I went to Buckhead Theater last night, which I used to
Right.
work there, my old stopping grounds. But I like to see, Rival did St. John did the Loft, St. John did Center Stage. This time he's at Buckhead Theater. Let me go see
Yeah. I
what's
remember
going
going
on.
to
What's the
Buckhead
show?
Theater one year for a Grammy event. I
I,
forget
wait, that was a while ago. I think I was at that
who
event.
was the probably who was I think B.O.B. was there
He
too. Yeah,
was.
yeah. So yep.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. You
Yes.
know how I was there? Greg was there. So I was
I'm
there.
pretty sure I was there with Greg. So we probably met
We
years ago and didn't
probably
even realize
didn't
it.
even probably because if Greg was there, I was there.
Well, I was Greg's intern and then I worked for him for 2 years up until the Atlanta CSAC office closed. So
Yeah.
I
Oh, I
was,
remember.
yeah. And that was like before the CSAC office was closed. That was when it was still
That
open. I
was before
remember
it was
that
closed.
year.
Yep.
Maybe 2016, 27, somewhere in there, maybe.
Yeah, 2016, 2017
Yeah.
at the Buckhead Theater. I remember
Yep.
being there because
Yep.
I remember B.O.B. He was the president. Was he? No, no, no. Was he the president? What was B.O.B.'s?
I cannot remember,
What
but I
was his?
remember he
Not
was there.
B.O.B. Not B.O.B. He was there, but I don't think he was the. Who was it? I could see his face. I think it was B.O.B. though. Was B.O.B. the pat? Was he a past
Was
president?
he? I don't know, but
You
he did
know,
used to be really involved
you,
because I remember he was also on the Grammy Future Now in like 2014, maybe.
I'm always
He was because I know I mean, I think he's still fairly, but he used to be more involved. I remember seeing him at events pretty frequently.
I don't know why I'm looking up was he the past Grammy president, but um I don't I remember him being there. And I
Yeah,
remember
yeah, and I do remember
him
him being there
speaking.
also.
Yep, I
Yes,
remember being there.
yes, yes.
And I'm like, what is going on? They got all the
They
great
always
food
have
and
great people. The
great
food
food
was,
and great
I was just about to say, I remember the food
I
being
remember the
so
food.
good.
Food was good. So the thing, not to kind of segue into something else, and we'll come back. But I'm glad we're having a lot more events.
Me too. Shout out to Diane
Yes, thank you, Diane.
reactivating the
Yes.
Wind Down Wednesdays,
Yes. I missed the last
unofficially.
one.
Unofficially. I know it's not an official Recording Academy event, but
Right.
I feel like so many of us have desires to be able to connect with each
We
other,
do.
and all the official Recording Academy events are amazing. But it's nice sometimes to be able to connect monthly, even on a more casual basis
That's
too.
right.
Like the events we want to look nice. It's a whole thing. They're beautiful. They always put on the best events.
That's right.
Um, but it's nice to just be able to connect with the Atlanta chapter
Yeah.
and I feel like it's been really beneficial. And it's gotten all of us to be able to know each other a lot better as well. Just being able to see each other on a more
Exactly.
frequent
And it's
basis.
more intimate. It's
Mm-hmm.
more intimate than maybe like the one we went to at the Buckhead
Yeah.
Theater or the one that was, I can't remember where this one was, but it was the one where um, I can see her name. I see her face. She's with Dreamville, Ari Lennox.
Oh, I was not at that one, but I
She,
know exactly which one you're
yeah,
talking
she
about. I love
performed.
Ari Lennox.
And then there was another one
I
that
know there's
night,
one Summer Walker performed at too that was at Terminal West. That was the
Terminal West. I'm trying
mm-hmm.
to think, what was the building that we went to go see? I don't even remember. The first one where I met Greg. Um, there was a Grammy event. There was a stage and there was a band up there playing. I don't remember the band, but they were, anyway. Um, I like those events, but I
Yeah.
like these events. I like these
Yeah.
events because it feels more that there's more of a connectedness to it. It's
Yeah.
not so big with so many people
Yeah.
that you don't get a chance to kind of talk to
Talk to
anybody.
everybody. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I love that. And well, and last year the Grammy nominee party was at the Loft.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
went. I was there.
Oh,
Yeah, I
nice.
was there. The one
Yes.
with Killer Mike
Yep.
and
Money
Money Long.
Long.
Yeah, I was
Yep.
there. I took my
Yep.
cousin. Me and
Yep.
my cousin Superstar Six went.
I love that.
So
Yes, I was blessed to be able to book that there with Aaron and Michelle. It was great.
oh,
I love it.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yep. Me and my cousin came. I was walking around looking like a chubby Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
Stop
me,
it.
me and my cousin. 'Cause he's super tall. He's literally he's how tall is he? 6'8".
Wow.
Yeah, he was literally he was
Okay,
the tallest
cousin.
person. He was the tallest person in that entire
Wow. And I'm trying to
building.
remember now because I know I was there.
Yeah,
I'm
if
like,
you
how
seen
can
this
you
guy,
miss him?
he was the tallest person there. And then
Yeah.
me, I had my little hat on. He had his hat on.
I
We were
love
like
it.
a Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis,
Oh my
except
God,
he
love.
was tall and I was a little, you know, I'm trying to slim it down a little bit. But that was that was a very funny
That
event.
was really fun event.
That
I had a
was.
great
Yeah.
time.
Right. And it's like I said, I know your schedule's very busy. You're involved in a lot of different things. So how do you, right? You mentioned networking and meeting
Mhm.
different people and working with promoters and artists and different organizations. So how do you determine, which artist is a good fit for one of your venues? What does that process look like? What are some of the red flags that you
Mm.
go, you're not coming here?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's a great question because I think it's multifaceted, right? There's like a
mhm,
lot of things we have to look at. And it's funny explaining this to artists or managers or people who maybe have somebody who's viral but haven't brought them to a stage yet. They don't always understand the trends, like how streaming, how many fans you have streaming or how many followers you have doesn't always translate to ticket sales the way you think it's going to.
mm,
So the best thing to look at if it's not a brand new artist is past tour history, ticket data, all that. If you don't have that, it can be a really challenging gamble. You
mhm,
got to gamble a little bit. But of course, we look at followers. Of course, we look at a big thing is engagement because you can have a bunch of followers. Well, they could be fake,
they can.
or maybe it's just like there was this one artist. Her manager came to me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, she has a good following, but when I look at her page, it takes me a while to figure out that there's music in this because she's just like a hot girl on social media. And so it's like, is she famous because she's
Y'all
just
stop
a
that.
hot person on social media? Or is
Right.
she famous because of her music?
Exactly.
Because of me, someone, who's into men, not looking for hot girls on social media. Even me, it took me a while to figure out that there was
Right.
music involved here just from looking
Mhm.
at their social media. So I think you got to really look at everything.
Mm.
You got to look at everything. One tool we've been using, which I don't know if it's open to the public to use, but is Roster, Rostr. I think most
Yeah,
people
I
can.
think it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it is.
Now obviously if you have a subscription, you can see a lot more, but that's a great tool for people
Mhm.
booking shows because you can kind of see you can see all their stats in one place. So you can see how many followers they have on Spotify, on Apple Music, on Instagram, on Facebook,
Mm,
on TikTok. You
mhm.
can see it all in one place. And if there is any tour data reported, you'll see it in there. Also, like we're really involved in Neva, and I know a division in Neva is Detour, and Brandon's really involved with them. He's in a lot of chats where people can kind of discuss like other indie venues.
Mhm.
And, we kind of got a band together and help each other out. Like, hey, I see you have the show coming. It did really well in my market, or whatever. Or maybe maybe it didn't sell that well, but the bar did $32 per head, or
Mm, mhm.
whatever. There's a lot of ways to make a show make sense besides just selling out. But I do think I try to look at all of it, and then sometimes it's just a gamble. Sometimes you're just gambling a little bit. But sometimes it's good to like if the music is really good, sometimes it's worth it to gamble because maybe the first show doesn't sell out, but maybe you cover the cost, but now you have the history because you took a chance on this artist.
Mhm.
And we got 3 rooms, and now they're gonna want to, what? I want to come back and sell out vinyl this time. And then they blow up, and they want to come do Loft, and then they want to come do Center Stage. It's 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 sometimes you got to take a chance, but also exhausting all your efforts to make sure you're making
Mm.
the best decision possible.
Right. Yeah, like I was sitting here as you were stating that. How does maybe someone who's an independent artist that's trying to build up their portfolio of live events.
Mhm.
How do they go about that process? Because you know they may not be at the level where they can, mm, you know, even sell out like vinyl
Mhm.
or which one's the first one?
Vinyl,
Vinyl.
vinyl,
Okay,
yep,
vinyl. Then the loft, right? So
yep.
let's say the loft, but they may be able to do vinyl, maybe, but they need some assistance
Mhm.
in that process, right? So that they could. And I always tell artists when I used to manage actually I did manage artists, but when they to help them through that process, right? So how do they so what's that effort look like? And maybe that's the effort you just talked about. But if I'm an independent small artist, I got a growing fan base. I'm looking to step up my live performance game. What advice? What would you tell them in order to be able to make that transition, or to even get into a space like vinyl, loft, and center stage?
Well, I would say there's a couple different things. I would say one, I guess it depends on what level you're starting at because like are you are you someone that can even sell 50 tickets? You know, like I think
Hmm.
people underestimate how many tickets they can really sell. Or overestimate, I should say. They overestimate how many tickets
I
they
can
can.
sell 100 tickets.
Exactly. It's like, okay, just because you have a couple thousand followers on Instagram doesn't even mean you can sell 100 tickets.
That's right.
You will be surprised at how much your friends support you once you actually start. You gotta really stick with it. But I would say if you're starting like ground level, the biggest thing is to get as much experience as you can performing because then when you make it to the stage that you want to be
Hmm.
on, you're doing a good show. So,
Yeah.
you're providing a good show. You're able to keep up while you're moving around the stage. I think some artists, maybe they're just studio artists, they have never been on a stage. You get up, you're trying to perform, you're trying to move around, you're
You
trying to do
gotta.
dance moves, and you're out of breath, And so
Exactly.
get on all the showcases you can get on. Maybe, make friends with people in your network. Like
Mm.
when I started out, I didn't want to be an artist, but I wanted to be in the business. So even though I didn't know everything, that group I was working with, I got them on shows. I got them on shows at Masquerade and other venues and all these things. And
Mhm.
like, that's how you do it. So, make friends with somebody who's an aspiring booker and you're an aspiring artist and y'all figure it out together.
Mhm.
Make friends with somebody who's throwing the indie showcase um and get on it, and then once somebody sees you on there, you'll start to make friends with people in this industry and maybe the guy that went on before you, y'all become friends and he's like, hey, I'm doing the show next week, they need the people, do you want to do it? So
Mm.
I would say especially in the beginning, performing as much as you possibly can. Now as you get a little bigger, you don't want to oversaturate the market because when you start doing shows and you're getting bigger, me as a venue, say you can sell 150 tickets at this point, but you just did Smith's Hall Bar or you just did, Masquerade Altar or, any of these small venues. I'm
Mhm.
probably not going to book you a month later when you just had a show and you're local, you know? So it's like at some point you're going to want to
'Cause like
stop
I just saw you.
oversaturating. Yeah,
I ain't
exactly.
coming to see you again.
You're going to stop wanting to oversaturate the market at some
Right.
point. But I think in the beginning, while you're growing experience, you want to perform as much as possible and make a big thing for me
Mhm.
when I think for me personally in my career and for artists, I think is like making the connections. The more connections you make and the more you show up as like a cool person just to know, like,
Mhm.
there might be somebody who like I don't like their music. I don't think they're ready to book yet. But every time I meet them, they have such a good personality. They're so positive, they're so cool. As soon as they are to that point and they have a product to share with me and something that I can book, I'm like, they were always so cool. They were always so great. Just because your connections aren't paying off right away, don't be mad. These people
Right.
I'm trying to do a good job at my job, so I can't book you just because we're friends.
Right.
But once you're to the point where I can book you, and every time I was around you, you were great to work with. Every time I saw you perform, you
That's
knew
right.
what you were doing
That's
on the
right.
stage. You knew how to send a proper production advance for the show and what you needed on stage and all these things, like learning everything to be ready once it's your time and always showing up, with a positive attitude and the ability to work and learn and not like
Mm.
you know it all now. I think that would be my biggest
Mhm.
advice. But also don't be the artist that never posts on your page and never posts your own shows. That stuff drives me
It
crazy.
drives
I'm
me
talking to you.
it drives me crazy. Look, you know what drives me crazy? You know what really grinds my grinds my gears is when you go to a person's page and they say they do music and there's nothing
Nothing on their
music really.
page.
I was like, you're a model. That's what you
Literally.
do. You're a
Literally.
model. You're not a singer or rapper or music producer. You're a model or you are a chef. because
Yeah.
that's what I see on your page.
Yeah.
Or your page is private.
Yeah. Or you're trying to be too
How?
elusive. Why is there one
How?
picture?
Oh, you know what? So here's what I learned. Okay, so who did I learn this from? Um, Ty, was it Ty? No, who did I learn this from? Ty Huntley? No, was it Ty? Maybe Ty. I had Ty Huntley over here a couple times.
Okay.
Um, anyway, it was something about, yeah, it was Ty. Now I know because we were talking about fan base.
Okay.
And I was talking about, moving my content from Instagram to fan base because
Mhm.
fan base has a migration tool that
Mm.
that Isaac Hayes has created
Yeah.
to transition 1,000 posts from Instagram over to fan base.
Oh,
That way you
wow.
don't have to populate
Do it
content.
all
It
yeah.
just moves it over, right? It
Very
takes a
cool.
couple of days. That was a great thing. That was like who invented that? Where you can just
Yeah.
migrate your content from one social media platform to the other. And he started to do so when TikTok was about to go down,
Mhm.
he was like, "Hey, you can come over to here. You can
Ah.
migrate your content. You don't have to upload your stuff again, and it'll come right over to fan base.
Oh,
So it
that's
makes it
awesome.
easier
Yeah.
to jump on this platform, right?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I migrate like 1,000 because it's migration up to 1,000 posts."
Wow.
And I was like, "Yeah, I could do that." And he was like, young people don't like that." And I was like, "What you mean?" He said, "Young people don't like to have more than they have to have 100 or less
Yeah.
posts." I'm like, "That's crazy." But for me, that's crazy. 100, so they will always go through and delete
I
posts
know.
just to keep it at 100.
Well, I don't mind 100, but when I go to an artist page
I just thought it was weird.
and you have 4 and none of them are really like showing you or showing what you do, or I have a show with you and it's selling really bad, and I know that you have a fan base that would buy these tickets, like it shouldn't be selling this bad,
Right.
but it's selling really bad, and I go to your page and there's not one post about the
About the
show.
show.
The first place, yeah, granted, the venue advertises it and it'll be on Ticketmaster, it'll be on our Instagram, it'll be on our website. We'll probably create a Facebook event page. But if your fans, look to you to know where your stuff is, they're never going to find out about your show. And I don't know why some artists think it's not cool to promote their stuff
I don't
because
know.
it's like it's really not cool to be sitting in an empty room when you could have sold 200 tickets or 300
Right.
tickets or 1,000 tickets. Recently I had an artist that was in our biggest room who could have sold it out before because it easily sold it out. The show had sold like 100 tickets. And I go to
Oh,
his social media and it is nowhere to be found. And I'm like, you are not going to feel cool not sharing your stuff when you are in center stage and there's 100 people in there.
yeah. And you're looking out in the mass emptiness that exists, and you're like, "Oh
And you could have, and
gosh,
you're an artist that could have had a full room. You've done it before.
yeah."
You have songs on the radio now.
Yeah. I guess they think like maybe I don't have to promote it. And so just because, I have a name recognition, maybe people will just, "Oh, they
And
got
it
to,
doesn't work
why
like
aren't you
that.
got to promote your stuff?" That's what I don't understand.
And the fans
Like,
want to know where to find it from you.
promote your stuff.
They want to absorb information from you. You don't even have to go crazy. Like y'all go buy tickets. One post that says you're here now is sometimes enough.
And pin it to your
Yeah.
Instagram or
Yeah.
to your Facebook or wherever. And it always is at the top. So people can always see it when they go to your profile. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't understand.
I don't either.
But they do. You get 5 pictures. I don't get it. And none of them tell the story. Or they just never ever release music, but they got tons of pictures. I got many stories and many artists that I know that say they do music,
Mm-hmm.
but they do something else. I know
Yeah.
they do. Like, you're a model. That's what you I'm using that because
Yeah.
that's a real thing. It's like
Yeah.
you're a model. You like taking pictures of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're a
Yeah.
model. Okay. You're
Yeah.
not a musician because I hardly ever see you making music and releasing music. So you got to release music instead of trying to be a model.
You gotta release
Anybody
music.
looking
I
at you?
think I think Future showed us when he was coming out. I mean, it was just like mixtape after mixtape after mixtape. And granted, I don't think that way of going about it is for everyone,
Hmm.
but it worked for
It
him.
worked for
It
him.
worked for him. And all of it's not good, but and I'm not saying you gotta put everything out, but I think it would be better to be Future than be to somebody who literally never drops any of your music.
Exactly.
Get it all out there. And I mean, look where Future's at with his career.
That's right.
You know?
So we got to figure it out, right? So I've heard stories that you had to turn down artists for unprofessionalism,
Yes.
right? So you don't have to name anybody, of course. But what were some of those worst cases of unprofessionalism? And then what would be some things that, I mean, I know you already talked a little bit about it, but what would be some things that artists would need to do, especially because it's the indie unplugged, right? I'm always talking about independence and how they're able to take information and to utilize to help grow their
Hmm.
career so that they can be prepared to take advantage of those opportunities when they arise. So how can an independent learn from those situations or scenarios of unprofessionalism?
Oh my gosh, there's been so many. Um, there's so many different scenarios. It's been ones where I won't book them because why do you have multiple aggravated assault charges? No. Um, listen, calm down. Um,
Calm down.
there might be ones where it's just, you're too big for your britches. You think you can come in and do whatever you want. And it's just,
Divas.
you don't know. And you're investing in the wrong things. You
Mm,
think you can just have a name and you can figure it out, but you've never ran a show. You don't know anything about a production of bands. You don't know
mhm.
anything about, like, okay, oh, you think it's going to take you an hour to get in here, get set up, and get sound check before doors open. You think an hour is enough time to do all that. And I tell you, that's not enough time to do all that. You need more time, but you
Right.
don't want to listen. You know, I think it takes time, and experience to learn everything you have to
Mhm.
learn. And don't come into head. Don't think you know it all. Like, be open to learn always, and just be professional when you're speaking to people. I've had artists that might be the most, like, online, their presence maybe seems like they're very rough around the edges, very,
Mhm.
um, very hardcore, whatever. But then I meet them and they're very professional. They're very easy to work with. They know how to conduct themselves. A good example is a Little Baby. I remember Little Baby was on One Music Fest 2 years ago. He was the headliner. And I remember, and I had done shows with him before when I was at Live Nation. And I think we had him at Roxy and maybe more than once. But anyways, my boss was like, "Wow, Little Baby was so professional. He was so great to work with. All those things, and your reputation will precede you."
Mhm. That's
But then
right.
there's artists that it's like, maybe I was so excited to work with them, and then they were so unprofessional. Their team
Mm.
was unprofessional.
Mhm.
They're unresponsive. They don't get us a production advance until 2 days before, and then they want us to provide the world. You know, we want to provide as much as we possibly can, but we cannot possibly set you up for success if you're not doing everything when it needs to be done, or your team's not,
Mm.
depending
Mhm.
on what size
Mhm.
what level you're at. So I would say always be responsive, always conduct yourself professionally. Do not send me one email that is one sentence and it is just a run on sentence, the whole entire email.
Learn how to
Please
craft
learn
emails
how to craft an
appropriately,
email,
right?
or have your management do it if you're at that point or whatever.
Mhm.
But this is a business. This is a business. It's not. I think so many people maybe see this as a hobby or something, but if you want to make money, this is your career. This is your business. You know, I'm not going to show up to work and talk to my boss crazy and not be
Shoot, some people
professional and
will.
not send a correct email and not
Right.
give him deliverables at the time that
Right.
he requests them. You know, just like for artists, like if you show up and your production advance was done when the venue asked for it and everything was concise, and when you showed up what you sent was actually what it was.
Mhm.
You didn't say, "Oh yeah, it's just going to be a guy and a mic," and you show up with a full band. You what you said it was is what it is,
What it
and
is.
you showed up at the time you said you were going to load in, and you were prepared, and all of that. And then I'll be like, "You know what? They were so easy to work with. I'll definitely have them back." And then maybe one of my friends calls me, "Hey, I see you've had the show.
Mhm.
We're thinking about having the show. What do you think about them?" I'm like, "Oh, they were always so professional. They always showed up great, everything."
You go on this list
Yeah.
versus this
You don't
list.
understand how much the music industry is connected and how,
Super.
like, we talk to each other. Like, it's so funny. I was at an event last night, and of course, Live Nation is like the huge conglomerate, and then in the Atlanta, probably under them would be like AG, and
Mhm.
of course, us and Masquerade are both independent. We, you know, we were all there last night at the event all together. You don't know how much of us talk to each other and
That's right.
consult each other or work together. Masquerade does shows with us all the time. We do shows fairly often at the AEG 0 Mile venues. I know Live Nation Touring has done a couple shows with me and hope to do more. So it's like we all talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
We all talk to each other. And if you come in and you're unprofessional and you don't know how to conduct yourself and you didn't sell tickets and you didn't post on your social media,
They
people are
all
going to find
know.
out.
They all know. Oh gosh, yes.
And then it's going to take you that much more effort. Like, say you learn from it, but it's going to take you that much more effort to then get into those venues because now you got to prove
That's
yourself.
right.
When you could have just came out the gate and I could have been told, maybe I talked to one of the talent buyers Live Nation. They asked me, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're amazing. You should definitely, or maybe a show that outgrew us went to the Eastern with AG and 0 Mile, and somebody was like, oh, I see you had the show with it. They were amazing. They were great to work with. Loved their TM. Loved this about it. Loved that. Whatever. Or we've had some shows that have the same TM, and we had a show recently. The TM was great. He's one of my personal friends. Everybody in the venue loved it. He's coming back. Everybody's excited they're coming back and ready to handle this show as opposed to being,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they were terrible. I don't know.
I don't know.
You really set the tone for the
You're bringing
evening.
them back.
Yeah.
And
So
you
we
got to
talked
decide
to
what
each-
list you want to go on,
Yeah.
right? Because there is a list. Whether people realize it or not, there is a list. Whether it's a mental list, physical list, there's a list, right? The industry is very, it's huge. The music industry is huge, but it's so small.
It really is.
So small. You may know this person, I know that person. Or you're connected to that person who knows this person. And it's like, it's so small. Many people know many people.
I mean, you
Like,
just heard we were at an event together in like 2015
yeah.
and
And didn't even know. Didn't even know.
So
But I'm
it
sure
is-
she's there. I'm there. We may have met because, a mutual friend. You never know who you're going to run into and who you're going to meet in this industry. So always treat people with kindness.
Absolutely.
Treat people professionally. Be on your game. And I think that's a lot of things people don't want to learn the business. I got a video that's going to come. I got to finish editing this video, but I got a video that's talking about that specifically, about a lot of people and it's more for music producers though, and how music producers like to spend a lot of time watching tutorials and people make beats online and the next gear video, the next synth, the next whatever, but don't really want to go to learn the business though. And it's like, I don't care how many of these beat videos you watch, it ain't gonna help you do what you need to do in this business though. So you can watch this till you blue in the face. Learn the business side. Learn
your
these
network
things.
makes your net worth.
That's right. No, but it's true though,
Yeah.
right? It's true because for you, it's prime examples, right? You're interning with Aaron, interning with Greg, but it led to jobs, which led to the next level of job, which will lead to the next level of job. And I don't think, or the next step in that career. And people don't realize what that ultimately will lead to and what opportunities exist.
Yeah. When you never know too who somebody's going to be later. Like you
That's
might
right.
work with somebody now and y'all are both interns,
That's right.
and then later you're trying to apply at this company and it's a lot of times passing, they're the VP. And maybe y'all had an amazing rapport and you were so awesome to them and whatever. And you're like, now you're seeing somebody's like, oh, I'm connecting with somebody from amazing. Or maybe you weren't nice and you weren't cool with them. And now you don't get the job, I think there's so many people throughout my career, people maybe that have even treated me away when I wasn't in a position and then now want to treat me different now that I'm in this position. So I just think like you said, be kind. Be kind to everyone. Treat everybody with respect. You never know who's going to be who later.
Right. You never know.
So treat them with respect now.
I'm always kind to everyone, whether you're the CEO or the janitor.
Exactly. Treat everyone with the same
And I notice a
respect.
lot of people don't speak to what we call the help staff, right? Or if I'm going somewhere or there's like a janitor person or if there's a maid individual, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
You did good? All right, cool.
Yeah.
Like just always giving pleasantry and just speaking to other people because one day you never know where that person is going to be in life. So just be kind to everybody. So where do you see Madeline?
Hopefully the CEO of a company.
That could be, right?
Yes.
In the next coming years, where do you see yourself?
Well, hopefully I see myself as the governor of the Atlanta chapter of the Recording Academy in the short term.
Let's go.
Also, I mean, I just want to continue to grow. I want to continue to do bigger and bigger shows. I definitely would love to be the CEO one day of a major company in the music industry. I can't imagine myself ever getting out of the booking side, but I'm interested, in booking. I'm interested in artist relations. I'm
Mm,
interested in publishing. I got a little bit of interest everywhere. But I really do see myself being involved in Rival in some capacity for a long time. I love working for this company. I love the ability to kind of like, you know, grow it as much as I possibly can. There's no
mhm,
cap on what I can do as long as I can dream it up. So that's an
mhm.
exciting place to be. So I have no plans of leaving anytime soon, but I hope to be able to add more and more things kind of to my repertoire and be at a place where I can do, work with other companies and do other things. But I am just getting started.
She's just getting started, ladies and gentlemen. I can't wait to see what happens in the next couple of years and where
Yeah.
your career takes off and where you find yourself. Right? Maybe that CEO is something that happens. Maybe I don't know. Right? Maybe somebody says, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna retire,"
Yeah.
and they're like, "Who can be the next?" Because what companies should be doing, in which this is an organization. So if organizations follow organizational principles, they should be following the same type of succession planning that all
Hmm.
organizations do, and going, we know who's going to fill which roles,
Yeah.
coming up. Like I was my boss's successor,
Love
and
that.
so when my boss got promoted to VP, then I was promoted to
Yeah.
director. Like I got promoted when after she got promoted. So it's like if you're not ready to be a successor. If you're not, we talked about skill versus
Hmm.
will and discipline and hard work. If you're not ready to move up to that next level, even if you are, if you're not ready and you want to be in that role, we got to do some work,
Yeah.
right? And that's the same
Absolutely.
thing for an artist's career, a music creator's career. You got to be ready.
Hmm.
But it'll be
I'm
interesting to
ready.
see. It'll be interesting to see the
Yeah.
next couple of years how that transpires. Um, but how can people get in contact with you? How can they follow you? How can they connect with you?
Please. So my Instagram is Miss underscore Madeline, Madeline, Miss Madeline Faye. On Instagram. My LinkedIn, you can just search Madeline Jackson or Madeline Faye Jackson. Most of my profiles have my full name on them. I am the oddball that does not have Facebook. I deleted my Facebook years ago,
My
and it's
wife don't
been
have Facebook either.
so I deactivated
So
about 7 years ago. Fun fact: at 7 years, it permanently deletes, so it just permanently deleted
ah,
recently.
haha.
Um, but I'm on everything else. I'm on TikTok. I don't really post much on TikTok. It's more for me to consume and find artists and see where the artist page. But you can
Hmm.
absolutely connect with me on there. But I'm very involved in Instagram. I'm on my Instagram a lot. I'm on TikTok all the time. Just don't post much. You're not going to see a lot from me on there. But also, if you go to centerstage-atlanta.com, that is our website. Um, there you can my contact information is all on the website. You can learn all about Rival and Center Stage. Rival does have its own website as well if you look up Rival Entertainment. But yeah, I would say Instagram's a great way to reach out to me. Our website has my email. It is just Madeline at Rival Entertainment. So that's a really great way to reach me as well. And we also do have a place to submit inquiries on our website. So if you are an artist that
Hmm.
can sell tickets, that does have data to back it up, that is looking for venues, if you go to the rentals tab on our website, there's a place you can submit right there. And tell us all about your show. Put as much information as you can. I say people just be like, I don't know the day, I don't know the show, I have a plan, it's a festival, no other details. I'm like, where
Well,
can I find you? What's your social media? What's your website? Where have you done shows? Do you actually have tickets? Provide as much information as you
yeah,
can, but you can go straight to our website and submit if you want to perform at center stage.
I got all that right. I hope so. I mean, it's recorded, so you can always go back and
Rewind.
rewind and get it again. Right? It's right there. Uh, but Madeline, it's been great. It's
This has
been
been such a pleasure.
yeah,
Thank you so
yeah. I
much for
appreciate I
having
appreciate you
me.
stopping by and
I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
us getting the chance to chop it up and talk and learn more about you and what you do and your journey and your career and where you're going and just looking forward to maybe to seeing you at the next unofficial
Yes.
Grammy ATL event and even at some official ones once we I'm looking forward to those too.
Yes.
But I like the actual unofficial ones more. I think um, it's just
That
personable.
that personable,
It's
intimate, I
personable
get it.
versus,
Yep.
hundreds of people in this event, everybody dressed up, and it's like, So, but it's been a pleasure.
It has
I
been such
greatly,
a pleasure.
greatly
Thank you
appreciate it.
so much. We'll
Absolutely.
have to get you over to some shows at Center Stage.
Anytime. I'm always willing to come out and support and to be a cheerleader and do all those wonderful things.
I
So,
love it.
um, just, I'm always looking to be invited to stuff. So,
Yes.
so just
Yes.
let me know.
You
Um,
said, hint, hint. Come on now. Tell me. I
hint,
got
hint,
you. I'll
hint,
get, I got
hint,
you.
hint. I like being invited to stuff. Right.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but yeah, so thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being
Yes.
here, for participating, for joining us on this interview, and being introduced to Madeline. So
Well, thank you so much for
yeah.
having me. It was my pleasure and honor. And I love the studio too, by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait till we get our own official space. That is my ultimate goal. No matter what, my goal, whether it happens this year, early next year, is I want a space. And in that
Well, you'll
space,
manifest it.
I'm a manifest because I know what I'm looking for. And I just gotta find what I'm looking for. And that space is going to be the bomb. It's
I
gonna be the
love it.
it's gonna be
This
the
one's the
bomb.
bomb, so I can only imagine.
It's gonna be the bomb.
We can only
So
imagine.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks,
thank you
ladies
so
and
much.
gentlemen. Peace
Thanks,
out.
you guys.
Do peace wave.